It should be a point of national shame that we are so marked by mass shootings. Dayton, El Paso now joining the stunningly long list of American cities that have been marked by these tragedies. We never do anything to happen the next one, though often change is promised. With us now, 3 people who have survived recent mass shootings. Brian Claypool, survivor of Route 91 Harvest Festival in Las Vegas. Jackie Corin, survivor of the school shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. And Brandon Wolf, survivor of the Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando, Florida. It's good to have all 3 of you there to give some voice to what should be a national cry for better. Brian, you know, the premise of the segment is we hear all of these calls that will change after the tragedy and things will be better. I don't even accept the premise. I don't think that's true. We just had a Republican member of Congress on. He said, yeah, I'm open to discussing these things, but let's not just say it's the gun. Let's deal with the other parts. This has become a zero-sum thing where each side believes they have to get more than they give. And so we go nowhere.
Yeah, Chris, I was really offended by that congressman's remark. I mean, I'm emotional as we speak. It has everything to do with these assault weapons that are being used. It's not the human being. The human being can't go kill people, can't go shoot up the streets of Dayton, can't go shoot up the Walmart at El Paso, can't shoot up Parkland, can't shoot up Las Vegas without these assault weapons. This human carnage across our country stems from a selfish Republican Party. This has everything to do with promoting political careers at the expense of public safety. Make no mistake about it. We need an assault rifle ban. There's no question about that. And I'm pleading with people across the country. Start voting these Republicans out who keep making excuses. A president who says after the El Paso shooting, he said, Chris, the following: let me send some resources to El Paso. We'll send you all the resources you need. What are you planning on sending? Body bags and Band-Aids instead of an assault weapon ban? It's pathetic, Chris.
Well, Jacqueline, listen, we know what happens in this conversation. You talk about, let's say, assault weapons ban. It quickly gets caught up in, well, what does that mean? And is it sort of semi-automatic rifles? There's so many of them. Is it about caliber? There's such a range. Is it about capacity? Well, you could just rechange. There are always arguments. And yes, the NRA boogeyman is always out there, but it's got to be more than that. It's got to be that there's just fundamentally what Brian just said. People don't vote on this issue the way they say they feel about this issue.
Mm-hmm. You know, at the end of the day, there are tons of politicians out there that take millions of dollars from the NRA, one being Mitch McConnell, who has a bill on his desk right now that can implement background checks for all gun sales, and he's not passing it. Why? Because the NRA is giving him millions of dollars to make sure that doesn't happen so they continue to make money. You know, there's been over 500 shootings since the one at my high school last year, and nothing has changed on a national level. Although something was passed at the House, nothing has been implemented into law because of people in the Senate that just put their dollars over human lives. And it's incredibly defeating, but at the same time, it reinvokes the desire to speak out and loudly. And unfortunately, El Paso and Dayton have joined that long list that we know how it feels to be a part of. And it's just terrible. And I'm excited that people are starting this conversation again, but I hope it doesn't turn into the cycle that it always has.
Well, look, you got an election coming up. And if your generation feels differently about it, you know, this is your chance. We know the last 2 generations we've had, the baby boomers haven't been the biggest demographic at the polls. Younger generations are starting to make their mark. If this issue matters, we'll see it reflected at the polls, and then you'll see how things change quickly. Brandon, how about the other aspects of this, though? Of course, it's not just about weapons, but it's that the weapon winds up being the ultimate tool of this type of destruction. But what about room in that conversation for what piece is mental health? What piece is cultural?
You know, Chris, first and foremost, we need to stop stigmatizing and demonizing people with mental illnesses. The reality is only 25% of mass shooters have a diagnosed mental illness. So I really think we need to stop making the scapegoat people who are suffering from anxiety disorder or PTSD, because that's not who is committing these atrocities. And second of all, yes, we can have a conversation around hate, around bigotry, because those things are running rampant in the United States right now. We need to talk about the divisive rhetoric coming out of our leaders. But, as Brian said, we also need to talk about the core of this issue. The core of the conversation has to be about how a white nationalist could arm themselves with a weapon capable of murdering over a dozen people in less than 1 minute. That's a crime. It's a crime against humanity. It makes me personally ill to see children growing up in a world where they can't go to the grocery store without fearing for their lives. They will never be able to go into a public space without looking for an exit. That has to be the core of this conversation. We can talk about hate. We can talk about bigotry. We need to hold people accountable for their divisive rhetoric, but we also have to talk about banning assault weapons in this country.
Well, look, I think it has to be a both, Brian. I mean, you and I have talked about this so many times in a friendship forged out of pain up in Las Vegas when we first met. I mean, look, Brandon is right, but mental illness does play a role in school shootings, especially. The rate is much higher than 25%, and you can deal with that. But again, he's also right that people with mental illness are much more likely to be victims of violent crime than perpetrators of it. But we do need a both mentality here. You saw, again, that Republican congressman, not to put it on him, and thank God he survived the baseball shooting. But the idea of, well, yeah, let's also talk about this. We need a both mentality. You want to talk about these things, that's fine, but everything should be on the table at the same time. But we're still facing the same challenge, my friend, and I know you've organized and you're trying to get public sentiment behind this to do more. Nothing ever happens.
Yeah, Chris, look, you're right. At the end of the day, this should be a we mentality, an us mentality, we team mentality, not a Republican mentality. Chris, I've been thinking long and hard about this. You spoke to me within minutes after that Vegas shooting. You care about making this a safer world. But I've come to a conclusion that these Republicans that have filibustered, background check laws, they're beholden to the NRA. They're like employees. They're not legislators. They are employees of the NRA and of corporate conglomerates. And I'm telling you, until people across the country, please look me in the face. I know I'm not a millennial, but I almost didn't see my daughter after that shooting, and part of my soul's been killed forever. Please just look me in the face, and please, Chris, please help. We've got to get people to start voting these Republicans out of office. We have to have not only this assault ban, but, for example, a loosening of the privacy laws, getting to your mental health point. Let's loosen these privacy laws where if people are mentally unfit, they're mentally challenged, they've got some domestic violence issues, then have that information shared with a mental health provider to gun manufacturers and distributors. Let's talk about an elimination of immunity for gun manufacturers. Why do they get a hall pass? Why is there an immunity when people go out and use assault weapons to kill other people? That's a misuse of a product. Why aren't we eliminating that immunity as well? There's a lot of things.
Brian, I hear you.
That should be on the table.
I hear you. There's no question that a lot of things should be on the table, but all three of you are right. At the end of the day, it's about what will the people force their leaders to do. That's what we really haven't gotten to yet. Yes, we haven't seen the initiative that we should have to make us safer and protect us from people like this white nationalist. But if we demand it, if you demand it when you go to the polls, that's what you will get. Brian, Jacqueline, Brandon, thank you for turning your pain into purpose and helping other people understand what it's like to live through this and want better. Thank you very much.